The studio lights blazed hotter than usual that afternoon, bouncing off the polished stage floor of Family Feud like tiny suns embedded in the ground. The audience buzzed with excitement, chattering, clapping, waving foam signs, all of them soaking in the energy of being inside a television studio. The Williams family stepped into their positions, their matching outfits crisp, their smiles bright, their joy almost contagious. Cameras glided along metal tracks, crew members darted left and right, stagehands whispered last-minute cues. It was organized chaos, the kind that ran like a machine built on years of experience. And in the middle of it all, Steve Harvey walked out with the ease of a man who had done this thousands of times yet still loved it. To him, this was another episode, another two families hoping to make their mark, maybe win some money, maybe have their 15 minutes of fame. But the moment Steve laid eyes on Marcus Williams, something snagged in the back of his mind. Not a full alarm, just a tug, like catching a glimpse of something out of place. Marcus had the kind of smile that made people want to stand a little straighter. He clapped hard, laughed at every joke, nudged his family with pride. He looked like the anchor of the Williams crew. Steady, warm, a man who seemed grateful just to stand where he was standing. But there was something else, something he thought he was hiding. Every time Steve asked him a question, every time the spotlight drifted toward him, Marcus's right hand floated down to his leg. A tap, a shift, a quick adjustment, so quick the cameras never caught it, so subtle the audience missed it completely. But Steve Harvey wasn't the average watcher. He'd spent decades studying people, reading them, sensing things most folks brushed past. As the first round kicked off, the crowd shouted out answers. The board chimed, and Steve bounced between the podiums with his usual rhythm. The Williams family played with a beautiful mix of competitiveness and humor, teasing each other when they missed answers, high-fiving when they hit big ones. The energy was wonderful, but Marcus kept touching that leg over and over, as if checking whether something was still attached, still there, still hidden. During the first commercial break, when the audience burst into chatter and the makeup artist swooped in with powder brushes, Steve strolled casually toward Marcus. He didn't come in hot or confrontational, just a gentle tap on the arm, a steady look. "You good, man?" Steve asked, his voice low enough that only Marcus could hear. "You keep grabbing at that leg. You hurting? You all right?" Marcus flashed a smile that came too fast to be real. "Oh no, sir. Just nerves. Big fan of the show. Guess I fidget a little." Steve held his gaze another second, not fully convinced, but the stage manager shouted, "Back in 10," and he had to move on. Still, something in Marcus's answer itched at him. Something wasn't right, and he wasn't about to ignore that kind of instinct. The show rolled on round after round, joke after joke. The Williams family kept the crowd laughing with their natural warmth. Even the opposing family seemed charmed by them. But Steve kept catching Marcus checking that leg. Every time the man relaxed, even for a moment, his hand drifted down as if pulled by gravity. And underneath all the joy and excitement, underneath the applause and Steve's rapid-fire commentary, Marcus's eyes held something else. Something like fear. Something like a man carrying more weight than anyone could see. By the time they reached Fast Money, the Williams family was riding a wave of momentum. The audience leaned forward in anticipation. The music intensified, and the lights tightened into a dramatic spotlight. Marcus and his wife Sarah rotated positions, cheering each other on as they tried to hit the mark. When the final answer hit the board, and the score blasted past the winning number, the studio erupted. Confetti rained down like a glittering storm. Sarah screamed with joy. Marcus's brother wrapped him in a hug. Steve raised both hands triumphantly as the audience roared. Even in celebration, Marcus touched the leg. After the cameras stopped rolling and the audience filed out, Steve found himself thinking about Marcus again. It wasn't normal for a man to celebrate like that and still have fear flickering in his eyes. He couldn't shake it. So as the families prepared to head backstage to collect their things, he pulled aside one of the producers. "Before they head out," he said quietly, "ask Marcus to stop by my dressing room. I just want to check in with him." 10 minutes later, Marcus stood just inside Steve Harvey's dressing room doorway like a man bracing for impact. His shoulders were squared in a rigid line, his jaw tight, his eyes darting between Steve and the floor. It was a look Steve knew too well, a look of someone hiding pain behind politeness. Steve motioned him in. "Close the door," he said, gentle but firm. "Sit down." Marcus sat, but not comfortably. His legs stretched stiffly, betraying something he was trying so hard to hide. Steve leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Brother, talk to me. What's going on with that leg?" For a long moment, Marcus didn't answer. He inhaled deeply, exhaled shakily, and then slowly, almost reluctantly, his hand reached down and rested softly against his right leg. "My right leg," Marcus said, his voice barely above a whisper. "It's not real." Steve stilled. "I lost it 8 months ago," Marcus continued. "Afghanistan." Steve didn't interrupt. He didn't blink. He just listened. "I'd hit our convoy 3 days. 3 days before I was supposed to fly home." Marcus's voice wavered, and he pressed his hand deeper into the prosthetic. "I was the only one who survived." He swallowed, the kind of swallow that hurt. "I didn't want my family to see me differently," he said. "Didn't want my kids thinking their dad was broken, so I learned to walk again, learned to hide it. I kept the pant legs long. I kept the story short. I came home and pretended nothing changed." His voice cracked as he wiped his eyes. "I've been hiding this from Sarah and the kids for 8 months. They don't know." Steve closed his eyes for a moment, shaking his head. Not in disbelief, but in something closer to heartbreak. "Brother," he said softly, "what you survived doesn't make you broken. It makes you brave." Marcus looked down, shame settling across his shoulders. "They'll see me differently." Steve leaned closer. "You're right. They will. They'll see a hero." The words hit Marcus like a wave. A quiet shiver ran through him, as if someone had finally unlocked the cage he'd been trapped inside. Steve placed a hand on his shoulder. "You carried this alone long enough. It's time to let them carry some of it with you." With a shaky breath and a hesitant nod, Marcus agreed. 20 minutes later, his family walked into the dressing room. Sarah with worry etched into her forehead, their daughter with wide, curious eyes, Jacob just 8 years old, holding his mother's hand. Marcus's brother followed, looking confused and concerned. Marcus stood, his voice trembling. "There's something I need to tell you." Sarah took a step toward him, confusion turning slowly into fear as she noticed the strain in his voice. "Marcus, what is it?" He didn't speak. He simply reached down, lifted his pant leg, and revealed the prosthetic. The room froze. Sarah gasped, her hand flying to her mouth, tears spilling instantly from her eyes. Their daughter's knees seemed to buckle as she pressed her hands to her face. Marcus's brother stepped back, stunned into silence. But it was Jacob, little Jacob, who broke the silence. He stepped closer, eyes wide with fascination rather than fear. "Dad," he whispered, "are you part robot?" The tension shattered into a fragile, beautiful laugh. Marcus let out a sound that was half a sob, half a chuckle. "Something like that," he whispered. Sarah rushed forward, cupping his face with trembling hands. "You think this makes me love you less?" she cried. "You think this makes you half a man, Marcus? You came home alive. That's all I ever prayed for." Their daughter wrapped her arms around him tightly, sobbing into his chest. Jacob gently touched the prosthetic, eyes filled with awe instead of judgment. Marcus's brother shook his head and pulled Marcus into a hug. "You idiot," he said, voice breaking. "You're my hero no matter how many legs you got." Marcus collapsed into their arms, finally letting go of 8 months' worth of fear, shame, and silence. And in the corner of the room, Steve watched with a warmth that settled deep in his chest. He'd always said his job wasn't about the fame or the cameras. It was about moments like this, moments where people found pieces of themselves they thought were lost forever. The following weeks became a turning point in Marcus's life. He stopped hiding. He joined a support group for veterans. He saw a counselor. He started posting photos where his prosthetic was visible. And the unexpected happened. Veterans from across the country reached out to him, thousands of them, thanking him for giving them courage to stop hiding their own scars. 6 months later, at a charity 5K, the crowd gathered at the starting line, buzzing with anticipation. Marcus stood front and center in a pair of athletic shorts, his prosthetic gleaming proudly in the morning sun. His family stood at the sidelines cheering, their signs shaking with excitement. And when Marcus crossed the finish line, breathing hard, sweating, smiling wide, Steve Harvey stepped forward, holding a medal engraved with the words, "Hero Not Hidden." Marcus laughed through tears as Steve slipped it around his neck. "Look at you now," Steve said, his voice thick. "No more hiding." Marcus looked down at his leg, but this time he didn't feel fear tightening around his chest. He felt gratitude, strength, pride. For the first time since Afghanistan, he felt whole. "I'm done hiding," he whispered, and this time he meant every word.